Okay, we're recording.
Okay, good. We're recording. Good deal.
Michael Thomas is on track to put up 36 points fantasy today. I know I'm already eliminated, and I'm just in the consolation. Well, both of us are eliminated. I still want to win my consolation games.
I understand. I just would like you to stop talking about it.
That is rude.
Let's go.
But you know what, Adam? I forgive you. I forgive you.
Thanks, dude.
Here we go.
Yes.
You don't deserve it, but I do.
Thank you.
Today, I am here to give you the assurance that I have not forgotten you.
If we want to see the new evangelization become more than just jargon, if we want to see it grow legs and gain traction and change the world, we have got to take seriously our responsibilities as husbands and fathers, and especially as sons of God.
I want to propose to you then that something that our world is desperately in need of in the midst of this crisis is Catholic Christian masculinity.
If you want to be a good father, then bring your children to confession with you.
I can't get there unless I become a man of ascesis, a man of asceticism, a man of training.
A man not doing penance, a man not disciplined, is not a man
at all.
You guys have upped your game.
You know what, guys? I gotta say, I love the concept of Man Show.
Warning: the Catholic Man Show is about to begin.
Welcome to the Catholic Man Show. We had Scott Hahn, Father Jonathan Myers, Father John Hollowell, Carlo Broussard, Tim Staples bringing us into the Catholic Man Show.
If you were listening to the Catholic Answers live program today, you would have heard His Excellency.
No, he's not His Excellency. He's not a bishop.
Scott Hahn?
He's not a bishop.
Well, no, but he's excellent.
Well, that's a little confusing. His Excellency.
His Majesty, was that better for you? Do you prefer that?
His Excellency is how you
His Royalness?
reference a bishop.
His saintliness? I mean, like, whatever.
I like that one.
Whatever you got.
I like this.
You would have heard Mr. Scott Hahn. He's there on Catholic Answers Live.
Doctor.
Yeah. Look, when you call someone His Excellency, you can just, like, go to the stuff about him.
Dave.
Why don't you shut your mouth?
Dave, welcome to...
He's also on the Catholic Man Show. That's the point I'm trying to make here.
Who?
Scott Hahn.
Oh.
Dr. Bishop Scott Hahn.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yes, Dave, welcome to the Catholic Man Show.
Thank you.
You're
welcoming me to the Catholic Man Show?
Like
Thank you.
You need to be welcomed.
Thank you.
To the Catholic Man Show.
Yes, it's about time someone welcomed me.
We have Juan on the buttons this evening. Juan, welcome. I appreciate you being here.
Still rocking the beard.
Still rocking the beard, which is great.
I like that you didn't shave under pressure.
No, he did not.
See what I did there?
Under pressure.
Shave under pressure.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, well done. Let's talk about this drink this evening.
Already?
Yes, I want to jump into it.
Straight into it, okay.
Because I'm excited about it.
Dan, one of a loyal follower, Dan.
And Council of Man member.
Monaco.
You can go to patreon.com/thecatholicmanshow.
If you want to join the Council of Man.
We haven't talked about the Council of Man in a long time.
I think about that when we're not recording, how we haven't talked about it. When I'm on Facebook, basically, if I'm on Facebook, it's on the Council of Man page. Like, news feeds.
Right.
For posers, really, news feeds.
Interesting.
I mean, like, you just go through your regular news feed. Like, come on.
Okay. Interesting take.
Yeah. What are you, a poser? You know?
I don't know.
I don't know either. I don't know. What are you doing?
I don't know.
With your news feed. But
okay.
That's fine. When I get on Facebook, because I'm cool, I only spend time on the Council of Man page. And so if you want to join the Council of Man, really, in all seriousness, we have an excellent group of men, all dedicated to virtue. Just this week, we had people making all kinds of comments saying, this is why I love the Council of Man, because of conversations like this.
It's so cool that we can have a conversation where, I mean, when you get 200 plus people in one group.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's gonna have different opinions about especially speculative theology, which is some of your favorite.
Yeah, I do like that.
So everybody's gonna have their own opinions.
Yeah.
But it is one place on the internet that I know of that people can have different opinions and yet still be courteous.
Yeah.
And like gentlemen, like
we make sure that happens. Like this week, we've been talking about Santa Claus. What do you
Harry
guys?
Potter.
And Harry Potter, right?
In fact, somebody changed their mind for the very first time ever in the history of the internet.
They congratulated, like, hey, congratulations, I changed my mind based on this internet Facebook conversation.
They said it couldn't be done.
Well, maybe it can't. Maybe this is the one time. It's like, all right, well, okay, fine. Well, now it can't be done. It's already. There was the one time. I don't know, maybe, but also Santa Claus. Like, what do you guys do? Because someone was saying, I'm not sure. Should we do the Santa thing in our house? What do you guys do? And so it was just a good conversation,
right?
And it was respectful of everybody's family traditions, but at the same time, like, this is what we do, and here's why. Right? It wasn't just a
emotional, here's what I do.
Yeah, like, oh, that's good for you and good for me, but it's like, well, we have reasons. Everybody has reasons. But everybody can be respectful.
It was an honest, intellectual conversation.
Yes, exactly.
So you get that if you join the Council of Man. That's what we were getting at.
How do they do that?
They go to patreon.com/The Catholic Man Show. Everything that we receive monetarily goes back into the show. The reason why you're able to see this all at Facebook Live right now, our YouTube page, everything on our website is all because of the Council of Man. And plus, we just give... I think personally, I know I'm biased, but I think we give sweet perks for joining the Catholic Man Show, Council of Man.
Yeah.
Like for supporting, like you get the Catholic Man Show whiskey glasses, and like every once in a while, we just send random goodies, like random cool things.
Literally goodies.
Yeah,
Look, we just sent
recently.
cookies to tons of people.
Right.
If you've been a $10 supporter for at least a year, or if you are currently a $25 supporter, we sent you cookies in the mail.
Yeah, you're going to be getting them. So, if you haven't already.
You're welcome.
So
you know who didn't get cookies in the mail? Me.
Well, you don't support them. Support the Catholic Man Show. So,
that is incredibly debatable, okay?
Not monetarily.
Also debatable.
Okay, well, I'd like to see...
I buy whiskey that we drink on the show.
That's true, you do actually. Well, let's talk about this whiskey that we have, this bourbon that we have.
Okay,
given to us by
like we said,
Council
of Man member Don Monaco. I hope I'm saying Monaco. I feel like that's how you say it. Sorry, Dan, if I didn't say it right.
He's from Washington D.C.
Yeah.
Which I wish I would have met him while we were down there.
Teaches at America University. Catholic University of America. Something like that.
Okay.
It's a Catholic place in Washington D.C. So there's at least one in Washington D.C. There's at least one Catholic place.
Right across the street from the Dominican House of Studies.
So there's at least two in Washington, D.C.
Well, maybe.
2 places.
This one is, the drink that he sent us is Joseph Magnus. It's a bourbon. And so here's what happened. This family from 1790, I believe, or 1760, one of the two, they used to be distillers, mixers.
Yeah, back in the day.
And they went out of business, but they found over a 100-year-old bottle.
Well, it was Prohibition. They got shut down during Prohibition.
Correct. And they found
just like most distillers in America
at that time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very few stayed in production.
Correct. So what they did was they found over a 100-year-old bottle, and they brought some old people from like Woodford Reserve, Buffalo Trace.
Did they find them in India?
I don't know where the location is.
I mean, they found them somewhere, and it had something to do with India.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So what they did was they took their syringe, they withdrew it, they tasted it, and then they
did science.
Yeah, and then what they did is they basically try to reverse engineer this whiskey. And so this is a straight bourbon whiskey. It's aged in American oak barrels.
Triple aged.
Yes, American oak barrels, sherry oloroso barrels, and then cognac barrels.
No. It's cognac, sherry. It's Oloroso sherry and Jimenez sherry.
Okay.
Pedro Jimenez.
Well,
sherry.
It starts out in American oak barrels.
Well, they finish them. They finish them in those two sherries. Okay. So there's Oloroso sherry, and then is it Pedro? Yeah, Pedro Jimenez sherry and cognac barrels.
Okay.
So they're aged because it's bourbon, so it's aged in American oak, but then it's finished in those other 3 barrels.
It's 50%.
Yeah, it's 100 proof, so it's on the strong side.
It was labeled double gold in the San Francisco World Spirits Competition, which I found out today, actually. I looked this up because I was like, what does double gold mean? Like, do you know what that means?
Yeah. Well, it's twice as good as regular gold.
Right. So what has to happen?
Because it's double.
It's double.
Right.
What has to happen is every judge has to give it the gold standard to make it a double gold.
Ooh.
So in order for it to be double gold, every single judge in the competition has to give it a gold standard. So anyway.
So we should try it.
We should try it. Let's try it. We're on the Lord's team.
The winning side.
So raise your glass. And cheers.
Cheers to Jesus.
Oh, you should give Dan a toast.
Dan, I raise my glass to you. I raise it to your health, to your holiness, to your fecundity, and that we both may drink together in heaven. To Dan.
To Dan. Good one. So on the nose, you get, I get a lot of raisin. I get a little bit of
dark chocolate.
Cloves. You get dark chocolate.
Yeah.
You get dark chocolate?
I do.
Yeah. I guess I could maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
The cloves, the dried fruit, plums is kind of what like
like
hits me, and I think it's probably because of the cognac. The cognac would
stewed fruit maybe.
Stewed
fruit. Yes.
Okay.
Could we say it's
I haven't
stewed?
tried it yet. You've sipped it. What were your thoughts on the palate?
Well, let's hear. I want to hear from you. People don't want to know what I think. They want to know what Adam, aka the tongue, thinks. So right off the bat, you can kind of tell that's 100 proof. You know, it's not going to be that silk smooth.
I like the bite at the end.
Yeah, it's got a nice long finish.
It does have a nice.
Yeah.
So it's very like old leather taste, tobacco taste at the front, and then at the end you catch the dried fruits, the plums, the kind of apricot type of flavor that you get in a lot of bourbons at the end with a nice long finish. Very similar to like a rye whiskey finish.
Yeah, it is very rye at the end.
So anyway, it's going to be a fun whiskey to drink throughout the show. When we get back, we'll continue this conversation. We're on the Lord's team.
The winning side.
So raise your glass. I've never whispered before.
Raise your glass, everybody.
Raise your glass.
That's pretty creepy.
Yeah, it was probably creepy.
It's probably not.
Probably not something.
Probably not your best look.
Probably not something I'm going to ever do again, but that's okay.
Yeah, Margot, it's 100 proof. It means it's 50% alcohol.
I really like it.
I do too.
I really like it.
It is.
I'm going to be honest, when I first tried it, I didn't like it. But now that I've kind of getting into it more, I'm really getting into it. Now that I'm getting into it, I'm getting into it. You know what I mean?
It's very takes over your mouth. Like it's very creamy. It's very has a mouthful.
I feel like it's got a lot of layers. You know,
Yeah,
like it's the layers are stacked. It's very stacked.
It's almost like a Highland Scotch in the fact of like it's more complex than a regular bourbon.
Yeah, there's more than what meets the eye with it. That's a Transformers quote.
Okay.
I'm just throwing out some Transformers today.
Okay. I thoroughly enjoy it. This is a really good bourbon. Way better than what I thought.
Yeah.
Not that I thought it was going to be bad, but when it's You know
what I think part of it is that I was eating chocolate chip cookies before I came over here. And that can just throw off.
That can
just throw your stuff off. I mean, it can maybe throw you off in a good way. But, it can. Chocolate chip cookies, if you don't drink some milk, they can kind of hang.
It's very interesting. At the end, I almost get like an espresso taste, even.
Yeah, there is some.
Like I get a
base kind of a base
I don't know if
coffee.
it's the acidic.
Yeah, well, it's not. I think it's not acidic. I think it's a base.
Yeah, well, that's what. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
not acidic. The lack of acidity, like it's not.
Yeah, it's a base flavor, which is kind of different from an acid. Is going to be kind of more citrusy. the bass is kind of like.
And I've heard that it's all about that.
That's what they say.
They've
That is what, in fact, what they say.
Youths.
Yes. Co-eds. The co-eds these days. That's what they're saying. Yeah.
They say it's all about that. Okay, let's continue.
I have bad news.
Uh-oh, what's wrong?
It wasn't recording here.
Oh.
So can you take the video?
That's okay. I can just take the video.
Okay.
Yeah. That's okay.
You mean
here is like still recording.
You're just ruining everything, but that's all right.
That's okay. Well, it's because you got to.
Well, turn that off.
Yeah.
So you recorded somebody, but he won't be able to use that.
Yeah, I won't be able to use. So.
But just turn that
That
off
track
right there.
Yeah, take that off, and then up above, make sure.
Just
1 and
turn
3.
all 3 of them on.
Yeah.
Turn all 3 of them, and then you'll notice once we start recording, one of them is not working. Just you can turn that one off.
Okay. I mean, you only have to edit one section.
That's fine. That's no big deal. Thomas Lackey is already When Thomas Lackey comments on things, it makes me nervous. It makes me think that we're already speaking.
Yeah, no, that's what I was reading. I'm like bending over here, like, what did Thomas say?
We're already heretical here. It's only material if it's so, and it's not on purpose, and we're not recording for the radio or podcast. So, at this point.
Thomas, I don't know what you're talking about, Thomas.
Wonderful, Ryan. Nice. Hey, let's keep rolling.
Thomas, it's symbolic. We'll be drinking together in heaven. It's not real. It's not literal. But thank you.
St. Bridget wanted to everybody to
that
drink.
We could all have a lake of beer.
A lake of ale. She's specific.
He knows I was not being literal. He put a winky face at the end.
Oh.
Okay, let's keep rolling.
Talking about
your
My toast that we could drink together in heaven.
He said it's not going to work out.
We'll be drinking of the
It's like the "You've been some Yesu" moment.
Yeah, it's like
you've been saying this.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, "You've been some Jesus" doesn't really make any sense.
It's totally nonsensical.
Yeah, I can't believe you've been saying that for the last 42 episodes.
Really shows how dumb you are.
All right, let's keep going.
Welcome back to the Catholic Men Show. I'm David Niles here with Adam Minahan. Juan Posada's in the house, so if you got anything to say to him, he can
hear you.
That's what I was going to say, but it's like, no, he can't. He can hear me,
yeah,
but not
that's
you.
True. He can't hear you. Yeah.
But he could probably see
But we have that going for us.
On Facebook, yeah.
Which is nice.
Yeah, that is nice. Yeah, because I don't have to do it. So if you're noticing, like, hey, wow, the camera is not just being, like, left on someone who's just not saying anything, that's because I'm not pushing the buttons.
That's because Juan is here for
One of these days, Adam, I'm going to have you push the buttons.
And see how I do?
Yeah, we'll just see how it goes.
I think that...
You can't do much worse.
I think that the camera job would do better, but the conversation would do worse. I feel like that I would be too focused on the camera buttons where I would not be listening to the conversation and make it worse.
Maybe,
so.
Yeah. We'll see.
Yes. So,
we'll see. Maybe it's a gift you have that you don't even know about yet.
So the other day we had... we were watching the box. There's a big boxing fight.
I keep meaning to ask you about that. Who won?
Oh, I can't tell you.
Okay, fine. I don't really care.
Andrew Ruiz lost. So
okay, so
Joshua won.
So Josh had his vengeance.
He did. He had his vengeance. So we were watching it, and my boys really were into it. They wanted to watch it. They wanted to see it. So I talked Haley.
Was it? Did the judges decide?
No. Yes. I'm sorry. Yes, it was a judge's decision, but it's very clear cut. It was not controversial at all.
Okay.
Andrew Ruiz came in 16 pounds heavier than what he did the last time, which he kind of came in overweight. So he came in. He partied a little too hard.
Talk about eating some cookies before he showed up.
So my boys get excited about watching it, and they end up wanting to put on gloves, and it's very interesting to watch them swing, kind of duel it out. What are your thoughts on letting, boys, quote unquote, kind of take some shots? like kind of get them, like rough them up a little bit. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't have boys yet.
Right, that's why I wanted to ask you.
It's hard for me to really say because not having boys, it's difficult for me to know, especially at like, I'm thinking about Luke and Jude, not knowing
6 and 5.
their capabilities, you know what I'm saying? Like, because
Right.
they're not my kids. But as long as it's all within reason, I think I like it.
Right.
In general, I like it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's your question. They're your kids.
Well,
what do you think?
I think there's obviously, there's a big difference in 6 and 5 as far as physicality. So I have to make sure that Luke doesn't just pummel Jude. Jude is super tough, and so he'll keep coming back. And so I have to monitor the situation.
Yeah, he's kind of like Brad Pitt from A River Runs Through It.
I don't know that reference.
Okay. He's the younger brother. They get in fights a lot growing up, but he's like super tough.
He is super tough.
But he's not Brad Pitt at the end of the movie. He's Brad Pitt at the beginning of the movie. Just for clarification.
For the people who've seen it.
I'm not suggesting that Jude's going to develop a gambling addiction and end up getting killed because of it, but it's the beginning of the movie that I'm talking about.
Okay.
When they're fighting.
Okay.
Not the end of the movie.
Good. So, Dave, we've talked about this quite a bit on the show, but we have a Tuesday morning group where we meet every Tuesday at the IHOP. It's you, myself, Juan, Scott, our good friend Scott Bassett.
IHOB? Didn't they change it to IHOB?
That was a marketing ploy. Yeah. Our buddy Scott Bassett. I about said Scott Hahn.
Scott Hahn.
Scott Hahn.
He's just one of our buddies. He shows up every Tuesday.
Every Tuesday.
Yeah, it's no big deal.
And then our friend Sam Guzman, who runs the Catholic Gentleman.
Yeah.
So we all meet together on Tuesday mornings to discuss certain things. Sometimes it's more theological. Sometimes it's not. And one of the 2 weeks ago maybe we had a discussion on if the grid went down.
Yeah.
And everything, no more electricity, no more internet, kind of some turmoil in the state of the union in general.
Yeah.
What skill?
What are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do? And what skill are you going to be able to provide to the community? Because like we were discussing.
Yes. Well, so our buddy Eric Grayless was relating to me a conversation he had with our other friend Taylor Baranko about. Everybody needs a skill because when the internet goes down, when the grid collapses, you got to have a skill ready so that you can, make a living or, so you can do something in order to produce something to trade with. Right. And so like Eric, he makes candles. So he makes candles now. So when they burn candles at their house, it's because they made them.
Which is super cool. I actually text messaged Haley maybe last week.
Yeah.
And said, what do you think about making candles? Like, I kind of want to do that. I know Eric already has that craft done.
You're going to have to talk to Eric about this because we can't have too many candle makers.
But I want I want to be able to learn. I don't know why it doesn't. I don't know why, but on the Art of Manliness, it even talks about, it has a whole article on how to make candles.
You should buy your candles from the Graylesses. That's what you should do.
Right. So anyway, we talked about on Tuesday morning, we talked about like what skill would you have. So the man gear today isn't necessarily an actual gear, but it's
you should develop your own skill and trade your skill for candles from the Graylesses. That's what you should do. Forget buying it. You should trade.
Yeah, we barter.
Yeah.
Yes.
We could start it now.
So anyway, so it's really interesting to see.
Does anyone know how to bring the grid down?
It's really interesting to see how, who, like, what you would do, with that. Yeah. It's kind of a prepper's, mentality.
It is a little, it's preppish.
It's a little prep.
It's a little prep. It's a little preppy.
So what would you do? Like, what would be your skill?
I have my skill. I have almost everything I need in order to do my skill. I do need some Petri dishes and a Bunsen burner. Ideally, I could get by without the Bunsen burner,
because it has to be running on propane, I guess.
No, I mean you could use a fire.
I guess fire, yeah.
Yeah, just even like a twig. You get a small twig that's burning.
Okay.
But my skill is I am going to make penicillin. I was thinking about what should my skill be. I want it to be something awesome, something that's gonna work. Like if I can do this skill, I want there to be I want to be in a market with scarcity Okay, I'm a business guy, right? Like, I don't want to be chopping wood. Any Yahoo can chop wood, okay?
Right.
Even though I'd be super good at chopping wood. I mean, just like I like.
For the record,
I like chopping wood.
I
but
do too, man.
It feels good, right? Yeah. I think when the grid goes down, everybody's chopping their own wood. You know, nobody's gonna pay you to come in and chop wood.
Sure.
But anyway, so I'm gonna be making penicillin, and really, I think it's really within reasonable boundaries. The problem is that I've received all these like commercial penicillin instructions. Here's how they would do it in a lab, and like nitrous phosphate, I probably won't be able to get my hands on.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm having to modify a lot of these. You know, it's like instead of this advanced mixture, you know, once you grow the penicillin mold, you harvest it and you let it continue to grow in kind of like this fluid. I think I'm just going to try doing it in sugar water and seeing what happens. I need to do some trial runs just to see if that works.
Well, I will not be your guinea pig.
Well, no, you don't need a guinea pig because then you grow bacteria and then you put your penicillin stuff and you need to see an area of occlusion where it's like, all right, here's the bacteria and it did not grow. Here's clearly the circle where I dropped this. Put a drop and there's no bacteria here, so that's how you know.
Okay.
So, but that's actually pretty easy to do. You can even just take like some flowers sometimes and chop up the petals real fine and soak them in alcohol and then reduce that. And a lot of flowers have antibacterial qualities to them. So, but you need to make sure that it's strong enough. You know, it's like that's the art.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what I'm going to be doing.
Which will be a hot commodity.
Right. I figure if you can make penicillin, like, I'll be rich.
You're right.
And whatever that means when the grid goes down. I'll have so many goats. Okay.
or whatever it is.
Or whatever, right.
Yeah, whatever we're trading with.
Right. I'll have a lot of bullets. Another good suggestion is learn to make gunpowder. Now, that means you're going to have to be growing nitrous crystals or there's not nitrous crystals. There's a crystal that you use to you have to learn to grow it to make gunpowder. Otherwise, you can make black powder, which is actually pretty easy. You just need sulfur, nitrous oxide, nitrous phosphate, something, and charcoal. And you just mix those three together, and you can make black powder pretty easily, which is a very good substitute in the absence of gunpowder. But if you want to learn to reload your own ammo, you need gunpowder. And so you need to learn to grow these crystals, which offhand I'm still blanking out on. But
okay. I think that I would like to be a carpenter. And, like, I think that if I had enough practice, enough time, I think even with not power tools, I think I'd be pretty good at being a carpenter. People will need bowls, they'll need chairs, they need tables,
forks, even
forks. Yeah,
wooden fork goes a long way. Yeah.
But I think that there'd be a lot of other guys who'd be better at that than I would be. So I was like, man, that's not.
Blacksmithery.
I would really
is another thing, because
building
a forge actually is not hard.
Right. I would really like to learn how to forge.
You just have to have coal or propane, and so those things will obviously, like, coal is scarce now. So
I think what I'm going to do.
So this is our man gear, just for the sake of the show. This conversation is the man gear, so it's not so much about
a craftsmanship.
Specific gear, but it's about having a gear that you know how to wield skillfully, so you can.
I think I would like to learn. Like, I'm trying to learn how to make whiskey, so I'll be the whiskey guy.
Well, that's where gin comes from. Like, people were making it in their bathtubs,
right,
during Prohibition. That's actually why the cocktail, kind of has its roots in gin, because it was so bad. People are like, yeah, we got to mix this with something.
So anyway, I'm going to still consider different options. Beekeeping would be another good one.
Yeah, tweet us what you think is a good idea.
That's a good idea. Yeah. So when we get back, we're going to jump into the topic. We're on the Lord's team.
The winning side.
Raise your glass.
So I actually have the stuff to make black powder. Because I watched a YouTube video, and a guy was like, here's what I recommend. I recommend you getting some of this stump remover. And I was like, I have some of that in my garage. It's unopened. And it goes, because it's pure, nitrous, whatever.
Dude, I have a stump. Can I actually use that?
You can. Do you have a stump?
Yeah. I cut down a tree the other day.
What?
Which tree? Oh, on the side of your house?
Yeah.
The big one?
No, the one, if you're looking at my house, the one on the left-hand side, I cut that tree down.
Yeah, so this stuff, like, you just drill a bunch of holes, and you pour this stuff in, I think, and then you
It
pour
just
water.
disintegrates?
Yeah, and it just eats it away.
Yeah.
I've never done it.
Right.
That's what the bottle says.
Right. Okay.
But I watched this YouTube video. It's incredible. He just took this stuff, he blended it all separately. Charcoal, what you do is you just, like, burn stuff. Like, take a piece of cardboard and light it on fire. When it's done, you know, you have this, it's just carbon. So that's what you need. You just need pure carbon. And so you just grind that all up, and I think it's like 70% charcoal.
No.
I better not say.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was like a lot of something, and then a little bit of these other two things, sulfur and nitrous, whatever. And it worked great. He did it inside in his kitchen. He's like, I shouldn't do this because it's going to smoke out my whole kitchen. But I'm going to do it anyway for you guys. And he did it. It was great. He did smoke out his whole kitchen. And he did it over and over again. It's like, this guy is committed to his YouTube views, and I like it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Juan, are we ready to you think we're good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. Sipping on a little Joseph Magnus bourbon this evening. Talked about a craft that you need to learn in the last segment.
Yeah. In fact, Ryan Maxwell just posted, someone has to make the coffee.
Ooh.
Ryan Maxwell.
Nice.
Get it?
Maxwell coffee.
Yeah.
Nice.
I liked it.
So this evening we're going to talk about the virtue of patience. We've talked about the virtue of patience a little bit in another.
I'll patiently wait for the grid to go down.
And then we can excel in our different crafts.
Right. Just like, it'll be so much better.
We've talked about it in a...
Do you ever feel that way? Like, it'll be better?
There are parts of me that think that...
Just like, I wish it would just happen.
And
that way we could all, like, be thrown into chaos and, like, forced back into, like, reality. Away from this digital fakeness.
I think we'd be forced back into community.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
That is
here's what I see happening. The first like 3 or 4 days after the grid goes down would be incredible. Everybody, it'd be like, you know, on Christmas, everybody's nice to each other. You know, there's like a couple days and Christmas Eve, Christmas, maybe even the day after Christmas. You know, like you run into just strangers.
Everybody has
and it's like, oh, hey, you know, like, let me help you. Everybody's just so nice to each other. I feel like it would be like that. We'd all be attentive to one another for about 3 days until the food in your pantry runs out. And then after that, it would totally flip. And then that's when...
barbarians.
Right, that's when it's like, so we've got about 3 days to get out of the city. Don't worry about doing it on day 1. Everybody's going to try to do it on day 1, okay? You want to be like day 2.5, okay? Have a place, get there. These are just my thoughts. This could be totally wrong. There's like some professional out there who's like actually thought about this and knows what they're talking about. And they're like, Dave, you are steering everybody in the worst direction right now.
Which may be what you're doing intentionally.
I'm not doing it intentionally. But that's just
Anyway.
the way it seems like that. The first few days would be all right because everybody's got food. And then once people run out of food, that's when they start to lose their heads and like
freak out.
Start shooting like your friends. And
that would be crazy.
Adam?
I would never do that to you.
If you shoot me, I will be so mad.
Yeah, I would not do that to you. I promise.
Okay.
So this episode, we're going to talk about patience. It was really interesting because last night I spent a considerable amount of time reading the Summa, reading Joseph Pieper, reading different people on what Aquinas talks about, like says about patience. And then that night, I was a little probably sleep deprived, a little tired.
Yeah. You also have a newborn, so.
So I text message or I email our good buddy Thomas Lackey, and I was like, here's what are my thoughts. And I felt like as I was typing it, I didn't reread it, which is something I hardly ever reread emails. Like I hardly ever proof them. No, it's like what I write is what you get.
Really?
Most of the time, yes. And so like
that's why it takes me forever compared to you to write an email, because I proofread and then rearrange sentences.
Yeah,
I'll put them in different order. It's like, this is better.
Never do this.
This isn't logical.
So I'm sitting here. I'm writing this email. I'm feeling good about it. You know, I'm feeling like, oh yeah, he's gonna like this.
Like you're putting gold down.
Yeah, and it's like he's gonna be proud of me because he's really smart. You know, I'm not on his level, but like
he's gonna be like, wow, that's very insightful of you,
I'm
Adam.
really glad I'm friends with Adam.
Yeah, he really uplifts me.
Right. So I hit send, and I'm like, okay, I'm waiting for him to reply. I text message him saying like, you've got mail, because that's what he does with me every once in a while. He'll email me and text message me to basically say,
I don't get it.
Yeah. And so anyway, I was like waiting for him. He ends up replying back that night at like 11:30. I was already asleep. I get up in the morning and I'm reading it. And I'm like, oh man, I totally dropped the ball on that. I swung and missed.
You read it again? That's what you said?
Well, I read his email and realized what I thought was wrong. So let's do this. I'm going to start out by defining patience.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I'm going to define it, though.
I like to start there in general.
I'm going to define it, though, in...
Latin. Do it in Latin, please.
Latin. I'm going to define it in Latin and then Spanish. And then we'll go German, and then we'll go English.
We're skipping French altogether, huh?
Okay. I thought we would do Cicero first. St. Thomas talks about... actually uses Cicero's definition of patience. In the Summa, this is question 136. He says, patience is the voluntary and prolonged endurance of arduous and difficult things for the sake of virtue or profit.
Okay, wait. Say that again.
Okay. Sorry. So patience is the voluntary and prolonged endurance of arduous and difficult things for the sake of virtue or profit. That's what Cicero says. So Aquinas is quoting Cicero on this. So that's there's the first definition.
Okay.
Here's the second definition I thought was also pretty good. This is a combination of what Aquinas, and he quotes actually Augustine on this as well. So he says, he's quoting 2 Corinthians. He says, the sorrow of the world worketh death. And then Ecclesiastes, sadness hath killed many, and there is no profit. Hence, the necessity of a virtue to safeguard the good of reason against sorrow, lest reason give way to sorrow. And this patience does.
Okay, that's a more difficult way to define patience, I think, because
it
doesn't say what it is, but it says what it does,
Right. And then he quotes Augustine saying, a man's patience, it is whereby he bears evil with an equal mind, i.e., without being disturbed by sorrow, lest he abandons with an unequal mind the goods whereby he may advance to better things. That's what Augustine says.
I like that, how he says he bears evil. Not just, I forget what Cicero said, but he bears hardships or trials, something like that. But yeah, I like the way Thomas put it, bears evils. And of course, Thomas always speaks in specific philosophical terms, so he, I'm guessing, would mean not just moral evils, but just also hardships. Like if a storm, if a storm comes and hits you, a storm would be evil, and it's a natural evil.
Right. So he actually talks about that. He talks about the difference between natural and supernatural evils, and in the third article, he talks about whether it is possible to have patience without grace. Because he talks.
I hope he says no, because that's what I would think. That no, it's not.
Right. That is what he says. Yes. Because he talks about he uses there's an objection in there. It says like there's pagans who were quote unquote patient for the sake of the country and things like that. But Aquinas says no. We're talking about patience in the mind of of everlasting life, not of natural goods. So that supersedes what you're talking about of natural goods. But he equates, because patience, in order to endure hardships or difficulties for the sake of a good, of an end that is good, that is also, you have to have charity in order to do that.
Right.
You have to, in charity.
And he's talking about patience as a virtue here?
Yes.
Okay, yeah,
Yes.
because I think when Thomas talks about virtues, he means supernatural virtues. He doesn't always say supernatural virtues.
Right,
because
he
the pagan could have a natural virtue of patience, so to speak.
Right.
Which obviously you wouldn't need divine grace in order. Well, everything, of course, is grace. Everything, you can do nothing without God's grace, but it's not the same.
Right. He actually talks about, so it's not, it's cooperation with God's grace. So it's not, when he talks about the difference between natural and supernatural grace, he's saying, like, it's not a grace that you cooperate with. It's not like a grace that's infused into you, but it's a grace that is God's grace that's bestowed upon you.
Right, which, of course, everything is. I mean, you taking a breath is you cooperating with God's grace. It's like, you can say that about everything. So there's, different kinds of graces. And, just from a conversational standpoint, let's just call those things something else, like the normal day-to-day stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They're grace, but so we don't get confused. We're talking about supernatural virtues, which require a more excellent kind of grace.
Right, and it's because you're doing it for the love of God.
Right. Yeah.
So he talks about, he says, it's evident that patience is a virtue as it's caused by charity, according to 1 Corinthians, which is read at almost every single wedding, that charity is patient. St. Paul talks about this. The Pauline scriptures that talk about love in general, that love is kind, love is patient, love is kind. And it's interesting that St. Paul is specific in talking about patience first in love. Because if love is willing the good of the other, as what St. Thomas says, a lot of times in order to achieve that end, you have to endure specific hardships for the other person. So in order for me to help, there's a lot of times that in order for me to help you chop wood, I have to take time out of my day to come over to your house and help you chop wood.
Right.
So I'm having to endure this, like, not only physicality of chopping the wood, but also eating up my time as a husband, father, and everything.
Right.
Willing the good,
his own household to take care of.
Right.
So patience and passion share a common root word. So
right, which is why it's a sub virtue of temperance. Because temperance is all about governing your passions.
Right, exactly. And so there's an element of suffering involved in patience. It's not just sitting there twiddling your thumbs at the doctor's office waiting.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference between waiting and patience.
Mm-hmm.
When you're happily waiting, like if you have a sucker in your mouth and you're just waiting for your turn and I'm like very happy and content, that's not necessarily patience.
Mm-hmm.
Not from a virtue.
Right. Specifically enduring the sorrow.
Yeah.
Patience is enduring
exactly.
the
So let's
sorrow.
talk about that when we get back.
Okay, that's a good way to pick back. We'll be right back talking about patience, drinking a little bit of Joseph Magnus, brought to you by our good Council of Man member
Dan Monaco.
We'll be right back. I kept wanting to say Council of Dan. Like, I was like,
the Council of Dan.
I was like, no.
What do you think? This is the Council of Trent?
Yeah, maybe that's what, I don't know, but.
What if I get some water and put just a little bit of water?
Ooh, that'd be a good idea. I think that would be a good idea.
Stand by.
But make sure it's glacier water.
It's Berkey water.
That's very glacier-esque.
Ooh, Thomas Lackey says that he also doesn't reread his emails.
I saw that. You're way behind.
Sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
I was trying to make sure I gathered my thoughts in this topic because I was super nervous. Like, there's nothing more vulnerable. Like, of a feeling of, I think I understand. You think you understand a topic, you send your understanding to somebody else, and they totally debunk everything you just spent. You know, you're like, oh, well, I'm supposed to be talking about
You've
this.
obviously never been naked in front of 25,000 people.
What?
You said there's nothing more vulnerable than what you just said. And so
Okay.
you've obviously never been naked in front of 25,000 people.
Well, you're right. That's accurate.
Yeah, well, you should try that and then tell me how you feel about being vulnerable.
Well, it is very it's a very vulnerable position of thinking you understand a topic and realizing you do not. And then yet still go about talking about it. But I think I understand it a lot better than what I did last night.
Good.
Thanks to
Sleep and the Holy Spirit.
Holy Spirit, Thomas
And-
Lackey, Joseph Pieper. I read a little bit more. How did you have you finished?
You mean the Peepster?
The Peepster. Have
So
you
I
finished?
I finished today. I finished 2 books.
Today?
I finished an audiobook and a regular book in the same day.
What audiobook?
Frankenstein.
Oh, dude, I can't wait to start that one.
Oh man, it
But
was
I have 3 books right now that
Frankenstein.
I've started.
The audiobook was truly incredible. It was the most gripping book I've ever, quote unquote, read. Juan, you have to listen to Frankenstein. It was just, like, to the point where you were really going like, what's gonna happen next? You just didn't know. It was so good.
And then the other book was 4 Cardinal Virtues?
Yeah, and I finished 4 Cardinal Virtues today.
By the Peepster.
What
did you think of?
It was excellent.
No.
I read with my
Peepster.
eyeballs 4 Cardinal Virtues. I read with my ears
When I finished that book,
Frankenstein.
I was so mad at everybody. Basically, in my Catholic,
You
in my
lied to me?
in my Catholic circles, because it was like, why have you not told me about this book sooner?
Because they don't know.
Yeah, that was such a phenomenal book. I really it. Changed it was the beginning of me taking virtue more serious.
You just read that book like a year ago.
Yeah,
We've been doing the show for 2 years before you read that book.
you're right. But understanding, because the more you understand, the more you realize you're able to.
Yeah. The first chapter, the first third of the book, is all about prudence, and that was the hardest part to understand because it's like
It was
I even kind of reread a lot of it, and I still don't understand exactly what he's saying. The rest of the book was much easier to understand, and I was able to get a lot more of that, and it was just as eye-opening for me. Like the next time it's my turn for a topic, we're doing virginity, the virtue of virginity.
Okay, sweet. That'll be cool.
A virtue that you and I cannot practice. So we will not die with all the virtues, my friend.
No.
It turns out some of them are mutually exclusive.
Margot, I do need a proofreader. My book is going very.
You're just now reading this. She said that
Yeah.
like 15 minutes ago.
Well, I haven't been reading everything.
You obviously don't have ADD.
I was trying to focus on what I was saying.
You know what you need? You need ADD, okay?
Yeah, I guess so.
Because then you could be doing both of these things at the same time.
I guess so. I would like a proofreader. My book is coming along slowly. However, I'm hoping that it picks up now that we have our fundraiser taken care of for the station, and we have a lot of things off the table now that we had on the table.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's keep going. I think it's important to keep going. Where were we going to pick up on? Sorrow.
Sorrow. Yes. Nice. Because I didn't remember.
All right. Well, you're bringing us back.
How's your book coming?
Slow.
Welcome back to the Catholic Man Show. I'm David Niles here with Adam Minahan. We're talking about patience. We're drinking a little Joseph Magnus. Magnus has got to, that's like in the top 5 manliest names on the planet. There's, like Magnus, Leonidas, Jesus, David.
Juan.
and then like maybe one more somewhere in there. But those are definitely 4 of the top 5, not necessarily in that order.
Okay.
But Leonidas, like,
yes,
it's pretty sweet. I mean, aside from also sounding like a disease, like an infection of some kind, like it's an infection of the Leons. It's Leonidas.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We're talking about patience.
And
we were talking about sorrow.
Sorrow. I was like, suffering, kind of suffering.
Yeah,
sorrow. Yeah.
Sorrow. Yes. So we were talking about, patience is enduring the sorrow. Like patience is what, if you're struggling with sorrow, patience is what kind of a lot of times they say, if you've had a traumatic experience in your life or something like that, you're struggling mentally, emotionally, don't make big decisions.
Yes.
They say do not change anything.
Yeah. Or times of spiritual dryness. Yeah. I mean, if you're feeling low.
Right. Now's not the time. And so patience is the safeguard.
And the same is true if you're feeling high. Like, if you're feeling joyous, if you're in all these like, oh, consolation, don't make a change then either. It's in the neutral. You want to do it in the neutral. Yeah. Because
patience is a safeguard to making sure that you're not making irrational decisions. Your irascible appetites are not out of whack, out of being crazy, and you're able to make sure that you're safeguarding yourself from making imprudent decisions. So I think it's interesting that a lot of times, in this season is Advent. It's a time of waiting. There's a lot of people who
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's kind of why we're talking about patience today.
There's a lot of people who have a lot of sorrow, who are suffering during this time, whether it be a loss of job, a loss of a family member.
Yeah, sadly, Christmas does actually bring up a lot of sorrow for many people, just because
there's a lot of stress involved.
Especially when I think people, if they had a loss of a loved one recently, just you feel their loss more in these, moments of family togetherness, or what should be family togetherness.
Right. Yeah, but patience is trusting in in God's plan. It's preserving through knowing that God has a plan, and that you're just abiding in His plan. It's the calm, the cool collect of knowing. Like I've heard before that worry is a mild form of atheism. And so it's the understanding of that God has the plan. It's a much better plan than what we can ever perceive, and that we're going to stick to that plan.
Yeah. So is patience, is this just like a passive thing that we just sit there and kind of like let happen to us? Or is it an active thing that we participate in?
It's not either or. I think there's a both. There's a both and to this.
Okay.
I think that there's a both and. An example, I'll use a natural maybe example for this. Hopefully this will ring true.
Okay.
This is off the cuff, so we'll see.
I like it.
A lot of people want to be the Jesus guy. Like a lot of Catholics, when you're new to your faith, or like you're on fire, you want to be the Jesus guy. You want to go and evangelize the whole world. Anywhere you step into the room, let's talk about Jesus. Let's talk about my religion.
Yeah.
And that's very off-putting to a lot of people. That's not maybe something that you should start off.
It's not necessarily your lead card.
It's not your lead card.
Yeah.
You should have a ace up your sleeve kind of thing.
Yeah.
So for instance,
maybe just be more normal at first.
Maybe be a little bit more normal.
Right.
And for instance, I've been going to the boxing gym for almost a year now. I'm approaching a year, and this whole time while working out and boxing, I've been thinking about how am I going to bring my faith into the gym? Because there's a lot of guys who are struggling just in a lot of different ways who box.
Right. So you want to first show them how good you are at punching people in the face. And then talk about Jesus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Of course.
And so I've been trying to figure out, like, how do I be a normal guy who lives, but still living my faith? How do I approach people but not be the weird, like, let's talk about Jesus, sit down and
right.
like where people are kind of weird about it. And so I was very intentional about talking about my family, talking about like things that I did on the weekend involving Holy Mass, involving like how I kept Sunday a day of rest, throughout this year's process. Just about 3 weeks ago, a guy approached me and said that he had been incarcerated for over 12 years, and he was he actually was one of my coaches who was working with me on the MITS, and he said, "Hey, I looked you I looked you up on Facebook. Facebook suggested friends. I looked you up. I saw you were on the Catholic Man Show. I listened to one of your shows, and I realized that you believe in Jesus." I was like, "Yes, I do." And he
correct.
Correct. I do. And then we got into a wonderful conversation about what the role of a man in the household is supposed to be, and how he didn't understand it at first, and how he didn't have a good role model, and what marriage was, and how you're supposed to be as a father and a husband, and now how he's finally figured that out. And so had I approached this guy immediately and said, Jesus, convert to Catholicism, and not showed him like I'm a normal human being.
Right. I'm also cool. I'm and regular.
I'm also like we should be evangelizing.
You can be on the team with me, and you won't be weird.
Right.
Yeah.
But had I done that first, I may have turned him off. I may have not. So I tried to be patient in this idea of I'm not going to do it on my time.
Right.
I have this idea. I was hoping to have the idea that God was going to use me in whenever He was wanting to help spread the faith of the Catholic.
Right.
It's
Catholic cool
faith.
To be countercultural. Like we can be countercultural against everything else and still be normal. Because actually that's what normal is. Normal is actually worshiping Christ.
Right.
Being Catholic is normal. If you're being anything else, then actually you're not being what you were made to be. And so, like, the secularism, that's weird. That's weird. Don't do that.
Right.
So, anyway, patience.
So, but patience is knowing that it's not on your time, it's on God's time, and just abiding in His time frame and not forcing it. I think a lot of times I struggle with, like, I want to force it. I want to talk about immediately. I want to talk about, like, what are your struggles? Let's talk about apologetically. Let's convert you now.
Let's solve this right now. Let's get to the bottom of it.
And that's not how you. That's not how you turn.
That's not how people operate. That's not how their internals work. It takes time and a process. It's kind of a cliche, but they have to know how much you care before they, before they care how much you know.
Right.
Whatever. It's cliche, but it's true.
It's true.
But
so that hopefully maybe is an example of the natural a natural example of patience.
Yeah, it's a good personal example.
Okay.
The reason I ask that question is because I used to think patience is just like this. It's very passive. You're just waiting around.
Right.
It's kind of like what you do when you're not doing anything. It's not something that you do. It's something that you don't do. You just kind of like sit there and try not to do anything, and that's patience. But that's not actually what patience is. Patience is an active thing in as much as it's something that you choose. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's a specific action taking place, but it is something that you voluntarily, which is what Cicero, he used that word voluntarily in his definition. So it's something that you enter into. And so because of that, it has this, it's an active thing. It's not just like a waiting around, just waiting for something to happen. I don't know when it's going to happen.
Right.
I mean, with patience, you might not know when it's going to be over, whatever it is you're being patient with, but it's every moment you're continuing to choose it. And you're continuing to submit your will to the will of God in that, hey, Lord, if it's your will that it not happen yet, then
which is tough
I resign myself to you.
But that's tough for men because we want to do, like, we're doers.
Yeah, we want to be in charge. Right.
Yeah, we struggle with pride a lot. And
especially
so
you.
Especially me.
Really, yeah.
No doubt. Have you been listening to my confessions? Anyway.
Yeah. Well, yes.
Yes. But that is something that men struggle with, is they want to control, and so it's hard to let go sometimes and understand, like, no, sometimes we have to be the Marys instead of the Marthas. Not that Martha was doing anything bad. Not that Jesus said.
Can you come up with a manlier example?
Sometimes you have to be Ambrose.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to be the Ambrose.
Yeah.
And attack Augustine.
That dude was manly.
At the
Your
right time. Your
first one was better, but the second one was more manly. So anyway, yeah.
Okay. But for the first example, Jesus was talking. He said that Martha wasn't doing something wrong. It said that Mary was doing the right thing first,
the better thing. Yeah, the more excellent thing. Yeah.
Right. And so, I don't know. That's just an interesting thought process.
Right. Yeah, because Martha's over there working,
right.
and Mary's just sitting at the feet of Jesus. Just serving him, waiting, tending on him, and it looks like she's doing nothing. It looks like she's just sitting there, right? But really, she's actively engaged in this activity, and so this is such a good example. It is so important for the interior life, because the interior life is this way. It's passive. It's resigned to the will of God.
Yeah.
No matter what happens, we should receive.
Right. Especially when it comes to God's will.
Yeah. Learn. We need to learn.
It makes us happiest.
Learn to receive.
Right. So we've been drinking just Magnus, brought to you by Dan.
Monaco.
Talked about a little bit of craftsmanship, and then the virtue of patience. We're on the Lord's team.
The winning side.
So raise your glass.
And cheers to Jesus.
What are your thoughts, Juan? What did we mess up on?
Yeah, Juan.
What's up, Dave Pearson?
Let me stop streaming first.
Any heresy?
No. Keep streaming.
Any heresy? Did we
keep streaming and tell us what we did wrong? No. I'm good with.
Come over here and say it in the microphone. Tell us what we did wrong into this microphone.
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good with.
I can take it. Juan, I can take it. Come over here.
I can't think of any. I would say, I would.
Juan, are you trying to say that was a perfect episode?
No.
Come over here then and tell us.
Margot said we did. Thomas Likey said, "Nice job, guys." That makes me feel a little like he may be just saying that.
He's just being so nice.
He is.
I'm gonna love it anyway.
Yeah.
That comment.
Thomas, it'd be interesting. I actually would think it'd be interesting to have Thomas on every episode. I was about to say,
of course,
be interesting to hear his take.
From the third segment, half of it was not about patience.
Yeah, that's because the problem is that Dave got on the kicker of.
Then you had your story. That was a way too long story.
It was a long story.
About what? The boxing?
Yeah.
No, about your email.
Oh, about my email with Thomas?
Yeah, that was like a 2-minute story, bro.
Oh man.
The boxing story was also long.
Yeah, but that was okay. No,
yeah,
I thought it was good.
In context, but.
Well.
Juan, are you gonna come tell us what we did wrong?
I just did.
Well, you didn't say it in the microphone. Nobody could hear you.
Okay. We don't mic you up on purpose because we want to be able to know for sure what you're going to say before you say it.
Juan, in 7 words, what does Christmas mean to you?
In 7 words.
Incarnation. Second coming. Mary. Joseph.
Jesus.
2 more.
Mercy.
Donkey.
On flesh.
Did you say on flesh? What was the last thing you said?
Personified.
That's not one word. I was holding the fingers up, and then you said on flesh.
On flesh is not one word?
No.
Oh, that's just, I'm bad in English.
In Espanol,
my
it's
English
one word,
is
yeah.
very broken.
Yeah.
Super broken.
Mi inglés is mucho malo. How do you say bad in Spanish?
I've been saying mucho a lot to my Spanish friends.
How do you say it?
I've been saying mucho a lot to my Spanish friends.
Yeah.
It means a lot to them.
It means a lot to them, yeah. How do you say bad in Spanish? Is it malo?
Malo.
That's what it is in Latin, so I just went with that. And because really I just know so much Latin and stuff. So, all right, well, let's turn off the thing.
Okay, well, guys, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for hanging out with us.
I cannot believe Margot just said Feliz Navidad to me. Oh my gosh.
Advent.
Well, Juan, you need to get on Twitter.
She knows how I feel about that song.
Juan, you need to get on Twitter.